This is CBC Vancouver News.
Friends from Canada were texting me with concern for their family as well.
As hostilities between India and Pakistan continue following a short-lived ceasefire deal, how widespread blackouts are making it difficult for BC's South Asian diaspora to keep in contact with family and friends. Also,
crews also encountered multiple residents trapped on balconies. So as they went in to fight the fire, they're also conducting rescues.
dozens of residents at a North Vancouver seniors complex have been forced from their homes after a massive fire tore through their building. Plus,
small sparks that come out of the muffler of a motorcycle or an ATV, can cause a fire that will rage.
the community of Fort Nelson marks 1 year since wildfires led to weeks-long evacuations. How the area's persistent drought conditions are keeping residents on edge. Hello, I'm Janella Hamilton. Just after reaching a U.S.-brokered ceasefire agreement, Pakistan and India are accusing each other of breaching it. The deal was expected to bring a swift end to weeks of deadly clashes in the disputed region of Kashmir. Aaron Collins has the latest from Washington.
India and Pakistan began the day as they have the last few, exchanging missile attacks, a fight that appeared to be escalating. But before day's end, a dramatic shift after the two nuclear powers met through the night.
It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing with effect from 1700 hours Indian Standard Time today.
That news a relief in the disputed Kashmir region. This man says his village has faced severe shelling over the last 4 or 5 days. Like the rest of the world, people here found out about the ceasefire from the U.S. president. Donald Trump posting that the ceasefire came after a long night of talks mediated by the United States. The deal comes after several days of intensifying fighting. U.S. involvement in this ceasefire deal, a surprise to some. The administration had shown little inclination to get involved.
But we're not going to get involved in the middle of a war that's fundamentally none of our business and has nothing to do with America's ability to control it.
Hostilities began after 26 Indian tourists were killed in Kashmir by terrorists last month. India blamed Pakistan for harboring the militants that carried out the attack, an accusation that country denied. The escalating conflict perhaps spurring the United States to get involved.
I think for the U.S. itself, the region of South Asia is of considerable strategic importance and significance.
But just hours into the fragile truce, tensions are rising again. Missiles spotted in the night sky over Kashmir. India's foreign secretary taking to the airwaves again.
For the last few hours, there have been repeated violations of the understanding arrived at earlier this evening.
Pakistan has denied breaking the ceasefire. The two countries were expected to meet again on Monday. But on a day where hostility was briefly replaced with hope, well, the two sides may already be back where they started. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Washington.
The continued hostilities between India and Pakistan have some in BC's South Asian community worried about their friends and family back home. As Sohrab Sandhu reports, they say the conflict is being mirrored by an online information war, and it's becoming harder to find out what's happening.
I was hopeful after the news today earlier that, things are going to de-escalate. But
that hope quickly turning back into fear. Hours after the ceasefire deal between Pakistan and India is made, both countries now accusing each other of violating the truce. Sandhu, who is a Surrey resident, says there have been multiple nights of blackouts across several cities in northern India, where he is visiting family.
there was a blackout, there were sirens, and there was, a lot of uncertainty. Now what's happening? My friends from Canada were texting me with concern for their family as well.
He says the last few days have been tense amid the escalating clashes, and finding reliable information has been a challenge.
There's so much propaganda, right, on the media and things, so it's hard to filter out what's right and what's wrong.
A concern for those here in BC who have ties to the region.
For many here in Canada who have family and are worried, it's a matter of also getting correct information. So I think that has been a challenge. And needing to verify images that we're seeing.
Najibullah says there has been conflicting media reports coming out of India and Pakistan,
which has also been really hard. I mean, it's one thing that there is actual fighting, but another is that there is also an information warfare.
This is also a period of sort of increased jingoism on both sides. Instead of calling for peace and calming down of tensions, we see calls for retribution, for attacking the other side.
The ceasefire was expected to bring a swift end to weeks of mounting tensions, which has so far killed dozens of people on both sides.
I don't know if I can leave in such situation.
Sandhu says he has a return flight to BC booked for next week, but with some airports in India now closed, there's a lot of uncertainty in the air. Sohrab Sandhu, CBC News, Surrey.
Emergency crews say 36 people have been displaced and 2 people were taken to the hospital after flames tore through a seniors apartment complex in the Lynn Valley area this morning. And as Michelle Morton reports, the complex was still partially under construction following a deadly fire there 3 years ago.
Large plumes of smoke covering parts of the North Shore after a massive fire broke out at the Silver Lynn Apartment Seniors Complex Saturday morning.
I looked around the back and there was a lot of black smoke.
Neighbors jumping into action, knocking on doors, helping residents and pets get out.
It went from smoke and a couple of fire trucks to huge flames in the space of 5-10 minutes. We got our stuff out quite quick. Some of our neighbors are a little older and some of them were really panicked.
District of North Vancouver Fire says it got the call around 9 a.m. Crews from the city and West Vancouver also responding.
Upon arrival, they had a fully involved working fire. Crews made entry and encountered extreme heat upon going in the building. It became apparent very quickly that this building was under construction. Crews also encountered multiple residents trapped on balconies. So as they went in to fight the fire, they're also conducting rescues, getting people off of balconies as quickly as possible.
BC Emergency Health Services says 2 people were taken to the hospital in stable condition. In 2022, a fire tore through this same apartment complex. 1 person died and 70 residents were displaced. Brian Smith was one of those evacuated during the previous fire and was looking at moving back into the complex this month.
I know lots of people in the North Wing, and a lot of it was cleared from the last fire. They just rebuilt the whole east side.
2 fires in 3 years is leaving the district's mayor frustrated.
These affordable seniors-friendly units in our community are in such demand, and so to lose some of those units is going to just put a tremendous amount of pressure on our housing.
The complex is managed by Lowland Senior Citizens Housing Society. CBC News reached out but did not hear back by deadline. BC Housing does not own the building, but says it's been working with the society to fund major repairs since 2022 and has been funding operations since 2023. A reception center to support displaced residents has been set up at a nearby church. And Metro Vancouver says it's monitoring air quality because of the widespread smoke. Officials say it's too early to know the cause of the fire. Michelle Morton, CBC News, North Vancouver.
As several out-of-control wildfires burn in BC's northeast, the community of Fort Nelson is marking the 1-year anniversary of a weeks-long wildfire evacuation order that forced 4,700 people from their homes. Mayor Rob Fraser says today people are still nervous as the community experiences persistent drought conditions.
Small sparks that come out of the muffler of a motorcycle or an ATV, can cause us a fire that will rage if we've got windy conditions. So people are on edge about that.
Fraser says residents are more vigilant and prepared compared to this time last year. He says the fires north of Fort Nelson are burning quite a ways away from the community, but it's a reminder for people to have an emergency kit ready with at least 3 days' worth of supplies. The drier weather is prompting a reminder from ICBC about the many different risks motorcyclists may encounter on the road this summer. Janella Hamilton reports.
Cones on a parking lot to prepare motorcyclists for real obstacles on the road. Here on Burnaby Mountain, BC's auto insurer is giving riders the chance to refresh their skills before hitting the highways.
We know that riders are very eager to get out on the road as the weather gets nicer. And to help them do that, we just want to make sure that they have all the tools and they're prepared.
ICBC hopes courses like this will give riders a safe place to practice their emergency brakes and avoiding obstacles. The hope is to reverse some sobering statistics.
Every year in BC, 40 people on average are killed in crashes involving motorcycles. There are also more than 2,000 incidents and more than 1,400 injuries. Safety goes beyond just the way you drive and your helmet. It's also about what you're wearing, being prepared for the worst.
Having the right material, the right clothing when you go out is really important because they say dress for the slide, not the ride, to some extent.
ICBC's encouraging first-time riders to take a course. And if it's been a while since your last ride, it doesn't hurt to spend time getting a feel for your bike in a safe environment before taking to the open road. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Burnaby.
A Filipino-owned business in East Vancouver hosted a free boxing class today for those impacted by the Lapu-Lapu Day Festival tragedy. Organizers say the event is meant to carry on the festival's spirit of resilience.
So kapwa is a Tagalog word that means neighbor or kindred spirit, a shared self. And that's really what the spirit of today is to bring people together and just know that if one of us hurts, we all hurt. And then in that same vein, we all come together to take care of each other as well.
He says money raised will go to the official Lapu-Lapu Day Victims Fund through Filipino BC. There was also a free barbecue serving up traditional Filipino food. A long-running festival for children and families in the Kootenays saw an extra-large turnout this year. The festival also coincides with the first farmers market of the season, and as Corey Bullock reports, with attendance growing, safety remains top of mind.
Every year, one of the East Kootenays' biggest family festivals takes place on Mother's Day weekend, and organizers say this year is bigger than ever.
It is busier this year than I have seen it in the past 5 years I've been running the festival.
She says one of the reasons is the many free activities for kids and families.
We have minimum 1,000 kids come through with their families now, and we've now moved to 2 days.
This is the 39th year for the festival, and Graham says it's a chance for children of all ages to tap into their imaginations.
It is a place for every single child to come and have free entertainment, food, toys, exposure to multiple activities and things they might not have been able to be exposed to.
And for these kids, their favorite part?
The circus and stilts, where you're trying to balance on things.
For others, it might be the music, or crafts, or the farmers market.
It kind of kicks off our season. We have a 25-week season, so this is the first one. And it's our 17th season running the market.
Organizers say safety is always a priority, especially after the tragic events at Vancouver's Lapu-Lapu Day Festival.
We certainly have safeties in place. We're very safety-oriented. So, for example, we have security overnight. We have police officers kind of roaming around.
A safe place to play and just be a kid. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
Still to come, the U.S. and China start trade talks in Switzerland. We'll have the latest on what we can expect after the break. Stay tuned. Russian President Vladimir Putin is proposing to restart peace talks with Ukraine in Istanbul on Thursday. The proposal comes hours after leaders from 4 major European countries threatened to increase pressure on Moscow if it doesn't agree to an unconditional 30-day ceasefire. Ithil Musa has more.
It was a meeting of the so-called Coalition of the Willing. Leaders of major European powers met in Kiev Saturday in a show of unity.
Thank you all for standing with us.
And to deliver an ultimatum to Russia. Accept an unconditional 30-day ceasefire with Ukraine or face massive new sanctions. Together we demand this from Russia, said Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. We know that we have the support of the United States of America. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney was on Saturday's call, while the leaders of France, Germany, the UK and Poland attended the critical meeting in person.
We are doing it for our security in the entire European Union and the entire European continent as well.
In March, the U.S. proposed a limited 30-day truce. Ukraine accepted, but Moscow held out for terms more to its liking. The Kremlin says Russian leader Vladimir Putin is willing to talk.
Russia is quite resistant to any kinds of pressure. We are open for dialogue. We are open for attempts to have a settlement in Ukraine. We do appreciate efforts of mediation.
Saturday is the last day of a unilateral 3-day ceasefire declared by Russia. But here in southeastern Ukraine, soldiers and medics claim it changed nothing. There hasn't been any ceasefire, says this wounded soldier. Shelling has continued just as before. Drones are flying just like before. The same with explosives being dropped. Nothing has changed at all. European leaders are calling on Russia to accept the unconditional 30-day ceasefire starting Monday. Ithil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
The U.S. and China have begun trade talks in Switzerland aimed at easing the trade war Donald Trump's tariffs ignited. Officially, the location remained a secret, but limousines and delegates were seen outside a Geneva suburb estate. Tariffs have soared above 100%. Each side says the other initiated the talks, and analysts' expectations are low. Switzerland's economy minister is the host. He says tensions could be simmered by an agreement on how to proceed with future talks. In his first meeting with the church's cardinals, Pope Leo has left little doubt he'll follow in the footsteps of Pope Francis. Leo invited them to continue the journey late Pope Francis began, calling it a precious legacy. Concern for the poor, the marginalized, and the environment defined Pope Francis. Leo described it as a courageous dialogue with the contemporary world. He also said his choice of name honors Pope Leo XIII, a defender of social justice amid late 19th century industrialization. Here we have a live shot of Burrard Inlet facing the North Shore tonight. I'll have your full forecast after the break.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
CBC celebrates Asian Heritage Month through the language of movement, where every step tells a story. Throughout the month of May, we're shining a spotlight on Asian dance groups, showcasing the dynamic blend of classical, folk, and contemporary dance forms. These talented dance groups share their cultural heritage through stories and traditions, knowledge and technique. Read and watch their stories at cbc.ca/BC.
All right, it is time now to take a look at our weather. Let's begin with a quick peek at the current temperatures around the province tonight, beginning up in Dease Lake with 0 overnight, and in Prince George, 3. Similar conditions in Williams Lake. On the island, it's sitting about an 8 as your low overnight, with some scattered showers in both Victoria and Tofino. Heading into tomorrow, a risk of thunderstorms across the board in Dease Lake, 13, and those risks of thunderstorms in both Dease Lake Terrace as well as Fort St. John. Heading over to Kamloops for tomorrow, a mix of sun and clouds and a high of 20. And on the island, rainy with a high of 15 in Victoria. Here in Metro Vancouver, we are going to see a chance of rain tomorrow with a high of 14 and rather overcast skies. And heading into Monday, it'll dry up a bit, but we still will have that chance of rain throughout the day and a high of 15. Prince George locals are celebrating the birthday of their city's iconic mascot, Mr. PG. As Hannah Peterson reports, the beloved giant lumberjack has now been representing the city for 65 years.
This ever-present goofy symbol that stands there and welcomes people in.
Darren Rigo is a Prince George resident and Mr. PG enthusiast who even sports a Mr. PG tattoo on his ankle. Rigo says he's reflecting on his love of Mr. PG as the wooden lumberjack with a big smile and a yellow hard hat is now 65 years old. Mr. PG made his debut on May 8, 1960 at a Rotary convention in downtown Prince George. At the time, he was 2.5 meters tall and made of hand-carved wood. Since then, there have been several iterations of the mascot. He was turned into a parade float, and he cheerfully traveled to civic celebrations throughout the province. He even gained national recognition when he appeared in the 1963 Grey Cup Parade in Vancouver.
He's been on so many stuffies. He's been on everything from thimbles for sewing to shot glasses to the spruce dollars, spoons, plates, postcards, pins, bookmarks, all sorts of things. Lighters, so many lighters.
In 2009, Mr. PG appeared on a stamp as part of Canada Post's Roadside Attraction series, and he's been celebrated in song. What's his name, Mr. PG? But most people know him as the 8-meter-tall metal and fiberglass statue welcoming visitors at the intersection of Highways 97 and 16.
It's mostly the same as he was 65 years ago, and there's just something kind of beautiful about that.
Rigo says he thinks Mr. PG is the perfect symbol for a place that doesn't take itself too seriously.
65 years ago, we weren't thinking about minimalism and modern design and sharp angles and, all these things that we now think about. It's just they designed this goofy, lumberman with a safety hat. And they were like, that's the guy. And I love it so much for that reason.
Rigo says he hopes the city's enthusiasm for the mascot lasts another 65 years and beyond. Hannah Peterson, CBC News, Prince George.
That is your late news for this Saturday. Thanks for watching. For news at any hour, you can always head to our website at cbc.ca/BC. We'll see you tomorrow.